welcome to another episode of Morgan's Pop Talks, breaking down the latest in reality TV and pop culture. So much to discuss today. We're going to talk about Let's Marry Harry, the Real Housewives Ultimate Girls Trip. Jason Tartick is here for an interview, so it's going to be just filled with lots of fun. You know, we usually start with the top of the show. Ran, I don't have a lot to say. I'm all by myself this week. My whole entire family, mom, dad, sister, brother-in-law, nieces, all went on a family vacation. I got to stay home with the dog. And my husband, David, is on a work trip. So not a lot going on around here. I'm watching a lot of TV. I'm playing a lot of piano. I told you guys I needed a hobby. I needed a non-physical hobby because I'm not a sports girl. My husband will play golf and play soccer all the live long day. Not my definition of fun. So I decided to take up playing the keyboard. I don't know. I mean, I can tell you that I feel my carpal tunnel has increased by like 3 times the amount that it was before. I'm usually always on my computer, typing away. Now I'm all tipping and typing on the keys. So I don't know. I need to go get a massage soon, I guess. But anyways, let's just go ahead and jump right into the pop 3. These are the biggest headlines in reality TV and pop culture. Let's start with former Dallas Cowboys cheerleader Reece Weaver is hanging up her boots and hitting the Broadway stage as Roxie Hart. So if you are a DCC fan, if you watch America's Sweethearts on Netflix, the big story out of season 3 was that Reece was retiring after 3 years, which is kind of unheard of in Dallas Cowboys cheerleaders land. Normally they stay 5 years. That's like the maximum amount I think you can stay. I think you can stay 6, but most of them do 5 years. So Reece, just wildly popular, fan favorite. You know, her very first season on DCC was the first season that they did the show on Netflix. Now, we can go way back. They used to do the show on, what was it? Oh, I don't remember, but I remember like being in middle school, being homesick, just watching that. Like AMC? Was it AMC? Yeah, I don't remember. But anyways, Reece was the shining star of the show. So this past season saw her in a different place mentally. You know, I think with the fame and notoriety that she received, obviously comes a lot of other challenges that people that aren't in Reece's shoes probably don't understand, you know, the constant pressure, the all eyes on you or whatever. That's the way that the season was painting it anyways. And that she wanted to spend some time with her husband. They recently got married. I think they moved back to Alabama. Well, now she's going to Broadway, New York City. Roxie Hart making her Broadway debut. It's going to be a 6-week limited engagement. Is usually how these things start. I mean, if you remember, I think Ariana, but definitely Whitney, 6-week commitment, and then they extended it. They did the same thing with Ariana where they extended it longer. Ariana, I think, did like 2. She did 1 at the beginning of the summer and then 1 at the end of the summer. But anyways, she was teasing it on her social media. Her and her husband were doing TikToks and whatever, and you know, if you looked at the comments section, whenever Reece Weaver was teasing this big announcement, it tagged CBS Mornings. And then you go to the comments and everybody under the comments is saying, it's Dancing with the Stars, it's Dancing with the Stars, it's Dancing with the Stars. Reece, you're going to be on Dancing with the Stars, which had been an internet conspiracy theory for quite some time. You guys, look, I love you. And I get it. Who wouldn't want to see Reece Weaver on Dancing with the Stars? But if she's going to go on Dancing with the Stars and make the announcement, she's not going to make the announcement on CBS Good Mornings. She's going to make the announcement on ABC because Dancing with the Stars is on ABC. So instead, CBS Good Mornings got her Broadway announcement. She also posted on social media saying, "Friends, typing the sentence doesn't even feel real. It is the greatest honor and privilege to have the opportunity to join the cast of Chicago musical as the next Roxie Hart." She says, "One of my biggest dreams as a performer was to one day be on Broadway, and I cannot believe this dream has come to fruition. I am incredibly grateful to the cast of Chicago and Casting by Arc by believing in me." When I first saw this, I was like, Huh? I had no idea that she was interested in acting and singing. Obviously, we know her as a dancer. But then after researching the story, I found this interview she did with E! News in June saying that Broadway has always been her dream. She said Roxie would be fun. It'd be kind of like a very different personality that I would have to portray, which would be a fun challenge, but I think I'm always up for it. She says, I went to performing arts middle school and high school, so I was the bunhead. I was being classically trained in all sorts of genres, all styles, and just fell in love with wanting to perform on a stage. I think it's fun. I think it is a very different personality portrayal that she would have to take on. Like I said, I've never seen her act before. So my thing is, why is it always Roxie Hart? Is that a thing? Is there like lore that I don't know about that when it comes to Broadway? I know that they switch out Roxie Hart a lot. Like there's always celeb cameos and whatever. But I'm just wondering what keeps other Broadway shows from doing this, because it seems like it always gets a lot of press, a lot of attention, and it's always only Roxie Hart in Chicago. Let's move on to headline number 2. Taylor Frankie Paul's ex Dakota Mortensen hard launched a new relationship. Shinia Powell, who, if you watch Secret Lives of Mormon Wives, you know Shinia. She was in last season. She's a friend of Miranda. She had like a little rendezvous with Dakota at the time. It caused this huge issue. Now all of a sudden, Taylor and Dakota are in this huge legal back and forth, and Shinia and Dakota go Instagram official at the same time that Taylor is off probation. So this is what they posted. A photo with like a lot, well, it was a carousel, but it says, soaking up our last bit of summer. The second photo is her kissing Dakota. There's like 2 or 3, there's 3, there's 4. Lots of photos with Dakota, so this was definitely a hard launch. I'm just going to read this comment that popped out at me. It said, let's not forget her appearance on Secret Lives and Mormon Live. Speaking to Taylor about the guy she was seeing, Shania's response was, he went back to his wife. So, you know. It is what it is. A source previously told People magazine that their friendship had naturally grown into something more. Taylor, obviously responding online, she's never afraid to do so, got on her social media and posted this odd like AI photo of the two of them. I don't know what's going on with Taylor Frankie Paul in the AI photos, but she did it the other day. AI photos of her in court, and people were like, what is this? And she's like, yeah, I don't know. And then she posted this AI photo of her and Shinia and said, this isn't news to me. If anything, cheers to us brown-eyed girls showing up in the same outfit with our Alanis. At least she seems to be taking it well. Okay, last up in this week's Pop 3, we need to talk about Perez Hilton. Now, at the beginning of this story, was like a little bit shielded from it whenever it broke. And honestly, thankfully, the night that this happened, I was in New York City at the Real Housewives Ultimate Girls Trip premiere party. So I didn't see the video. I wasn't like living on my phone whenever the story was breaking. And I'm actually really grateful for that based on everything that I have seen about it in the meantime. But as of today, Perez Hilton's mother has filed for temporary custody of his 3 children. Teresita Lavandera filed for temporary custody of his 3 children on August 7th following his recent reported self-harm incident. 3 children, Mario is 13, Mia is 11, and Mate is 8. According to court documents obtained by Page 6, Perez Hilton voluntarily consented to his mother taking temporary legal custody, agreeing it was in the children's best interest. The arrangement allows his mother to make medical, dental, educational, and other necessary decisions for the children. The filing emphasizes that the custody arrangement is temporary, and Perez can petition the court to have legal custody returned to him. He may be required to follow a transition plan before custody is returned. His mother also filed a request to seal the case from public view, citing Perez's public profile and media reportedly surrounding his home. She argued that the children should not be subjected to any further trauma and said the family should be able to privately heal and move forward. And I agree. I've seen a lot of conversation online about reaping what you sow. And that being an argument when it comes to people openly discussing and dissecting what is going on with Perez Hilton. I think I think show him grace because of the kids. These children have just been through something extremely traumatic. I mean, everybody that I have seen talk about the video that actually saw it says they were traumatized. So imagine how his kids feel and his family feels at this moment. And, you know, it's not even only about Perez Hilton. I just feel like in general, there has been a handful of really dark Hollywood stories, and it's just been unsettling. There's a lot of anguish, I feel like, in these celebrities that we're seeing it bubble up in real time. And it's like, we don't know these people. What can we really do to help or support them? Whether it's Ariana Grande or, you know, Perez Hilton. I know people are reacting to those two stories a bit differently. But it just makes me, I mean, doesn't it just make you sad to see the type of mental anguish and turmoil that these celebrities are going through behind the scenes? It's like they need Jesus, like the real kind. Okay. All right, you guys, for this week's deep dive, super excited to welcome Jason Tartick to the podcast. He is opening up about his engagement to Catherine Hurley, his career, entrepreneurship in relationships. Yes, I did ask about the Kyle Cook book that he gave Amanda Petula about how to date an entrepreneur and what Jason thought about that, because he is friends with Kyle and Amanda. So I hope you guys liked today's interview. Please welcome Jason Tartick. Jason Tartick, welcome to MPT.
Morgan, thank you for having me. It's exciting.
It's good to be here in New York City. How often are you here? Because you're in Nashville and in New York, right?
Yeah, so home's in Nashville, and then I'm probably here 1 week a month. So we have a place that we rent, and it serves a lot of things, right? It's like an office for the agency. We have some talent that are staying here now, which is funny talent. I'll tell you after we record. Good people from good shows, and then I stay here when I come. So it kind of serves as like a multifaceted place.
There's so much to discuss, but obviously, congratulations on your engagement.
Appreciate that.
So amazing. I feel like, you know, from the second that we saw you on The Bachelor, it's like, if you know anything about Jason, it's that he wants to find love, wants to get married, and wants to have a family. So how does it feel to be living that dream?
I mean, honestly, it's cloud nine. Like it's just the best. Like it's the absolute best. She's the best. I've said it once, I'll say it before. She's like truly like an angel that entered my life, and imagining the rest of life with her is like the best blessing in the world. So it's like such a great moment right now. Loving every second of it, and just excited for what's to come.
How did you guys meet?
We met, the first time we met, I actually, there were 2 dog bones that ended up on my front door, and that was from a mailman that dropped them off. And I saw the dog bones, and I had got sad seeing those. And I just put on social media, I'm like, all right, I need to go volunteer with dogs in some capacity. And then I got my buddy on board. He's like, let's do it. And a not-for-profit reached out to us, and reached out to me, DM'd me. It was just like, hey, we have plenty of dogs. We're a dog rescue. Come play with them tomorrow. I'm like, I'm in, I'll be there. So my buddy John Gertie and I go, and we go to play with dogs. We get a tour of this not-for-profit dog rescue, and that's where I met the founder, who is now my fiance, Catherine.
Was it love at first sight?
It was a gut punch. It was like, that's, I would say, like, in general, I've put a lot of safety nets over my heart. I think like most people do. I mean, that's life, right? Like you go through relationships, highs, lows. And it was pretty guarded, and I walked in there, and it was just a gut. When I saw her and I got the tour, I was like, wow, it was just a gut punch. And like, I think everyone can kind of maybe relate to that when they meet someone that they're just like, I don't know what that was. It was special. There's this feeling. I don't know what this feeling is. Like, okay, go digest that.
It's also, I mean, for me personally, when I met my husband, it's like, yes, you are guarded and you have those walls up based on other relationships, but it's like the moment you know that this is the person, for me, it was like, I almost don't care to let the walls down completely. And it almost feels like natural to do that. Did you feel that way with her, just at ease?
I mean, compatibility was always just so seamless. I mean, she's the easiest, lightest, best person to be around. And so that was just the absolute no-brainer. We just did a podcast actually on trading secrets, and she's talked about this a lot. She's like, I feel like you're trying to figure out if you were going to marry me before you were like, let's date. And honestly, she's not wrong. And it's like, you're all, I think like, especially maybe people could relate to this that have, gone through highs and lows of life. You're always just like, okay, well, when's the curveball coming? You know what I mean? Like something's gonna happen, right? And it's just no. With her, it's just so seamless, so compatible, and she's just. I just can't say enough good things about her as a human and her character, her care, empathy. She's very special.
Was there a moment that you can pinpoint that you're like, yeah, this is the one?
There was, we were sitting down at a pizzeria having wine and some pizza, and we were talking about, where are we going? Where are we at? And I remember just naturally, I was like, now that I've spent this much time with you, I was like, I can't imagine what it would be like to not have you in my life. And I don't want to imagine that. And I remember when I said it, I started tearing up. I was like, when I kind of left, I was like, whoa, what was that? And she was like, oh my God. So she was tearing up. And I think at that point, I was just like, there's just no, like, this is it. Like, this is 100% it. And so that was kind of that moment that I'll always remember, if that makes sense. And then when I proposed, I kind of said the exact same thing. And then I ended it by saying, and now we never will.
Aww,
so yeah,
so
it was it was special. She's special. She's the best.
And tell me about planning your proposal. I mean, seen out of a storybook.
Yes. Oh my God, beautiful Lake Como. You just can't beat it's the most beautiful place on earth. Like, I can't tell you how many times when I was in Lake Como with Catherine, we're just sitting there like, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God, the views. It's just absolutely perfect. But as perfect as it looked, there's always hiccups. Always hiccups. And so the funny hiccup, I talked about this in the podcast, was that I knew the X, the place that I had to be standing and she had to be standing to get the perfect photo.
Okay.
And I'd been teeing it up throughout the vacation of getting silhouettes of her. And I have this beautiful silhouette we got in Greece. She's wearing this gorgeous rose dress. Her hair is flowing in the back. The sun is setting over the water. And that was like the first silhouette I got. So I'm like, okay, this is going to be a thing. I'm going to get silhouettes at every location. So every location, silhouette. So this was the place that I had to get the silhouette that I'm going to go down on a knee. Now, she had known we'd been in Lake Como for 3-4 days, and everywhere there's boats, there's photography, there's people getting dressed up, and we were just kind of like chill doing our own thing. So we're like, this day, you know what? Let's just do it. Let's go get a boat. Let's get some photos. We'll be able to share it. Just, Evan, who's at Rewired and my manager, I'm like, hey, I'm sure he can help set something up. She's like, oh my God, let's do it. So we get up early. We're getting dressed up. She knows there's going to be a boat and a photographer, and we're just having this fancy day. And I was getting ready to do the silhouette of her because we get right to the X. We walk down this beautiful walkway overlooking the water, and we're exactly where she's supposed to be. And I was like, we got to get a silhouette. And she's like, Jason, the photographer's right there. We're going on the boat. We're already a little late. Like, come on,
and
let's
you're
go.
Like,
oh my God, I start panicking, right? So never in my life, she jokes around about this. She's like, she's like, part of your job is being online and like doing content, right? And she's like, you've never once asked me like get a photo. And here I am panicking in my head. I'm like, can you take a silhouette of me? So I'm sitting on the corner, like crossing my legs, doing this, and she's just like, what is he doing? And then after that, I was like, all right, you got to get one. And she's like, honestly, all right, some of those were good. So then she did it, and I proposed.
But way to think on your feet.
I didn't have a choice. It was the X. I don't know. It was either I completely fall apart or I just figured something out.
Yeah.
But I can't say enough good things about Italy and Lake Como. It's breathtaking.
What have you learned about yourself in this relationship that maybe you hadn't known before?
I think one of the biggest things is, you kind of mentioned it, just even my time on The Bachelorette. I always had and have the very, very unbelievable privilege of parents that have a very healthy relationship. They've been married for, 50 plus years, and they just have such healthy balance, and still, at their age, approaching 70, they're slapping each other's butts, they're laughing, they're flirting with each other. Like, that is such a unique privilege. And growing up in a household where I got to see parents talk things out in a healthy way and hear one another and both have strong careers and just balance things eh, is amazing. I mean, they have different religions, different political views, and just to see that was a privilege. I think that being said, one of the things I had always learned with that privilege is you just continue, you will find differences and you continue to fight. You be loyal, you never cheat, you always do things with character and class, you lead with integrity, and you figure a way out. And so I think one of the things I did 20s and 30s was a lot of maybe like self-sacrificing to the point that I was always like, we'll figure this out. Like we're gonna figure this out. We're gonna figure this out. Maybe turning a blind eye to some things that were very clear. And so I think over time you learn, you grow as a person, and you know, as you grow as a person, you learn what makes sense for you. And I think in this relationship, it's just life is really hard. And of course, her and I have conversations of differences and conflict. That's imperative. Like that's growth. But life with her is so easy. And yeah, I mean, I've told you a lot about it already, but just so selfless, so caring, so supportive, and just a really, really, really good human from like in every single part of her existence. And it just works. Like the idea of having to continue to always self-sacrifice things that are priorities to me would never be like a conversation of differences. What's important to her is important to me. What's important to me is important to her, and what's different we just talk through, and it just works. So that's life, though. Every chapter you go through growth, you learn things about yourself, you learn things about what works and what doesn't work, and you hope to be the best version of yourself for the next chapter. And that's kind of my big story, and that's where I am today, and it's exciting.
Yeah. And I think that's a part of growing as a person and maturing both individually and in your relationships. You know, when you look back, even myself, you know, like you said, you try to make things work because you have the best intentions of where you want that relationship to go.
Sure.
But when you finally are with the person that you're supposed to be with, it's like you said, all of those puzzle pieces fall into place, and yes, you have a give and take, but the right person for you will only propel you forward even more.
100%. They will make you the best version of yourself, like in
Right.
every capacity. And the right person for you will always find a way to check you when they think that you're getting off that course in a healthy way.
Yeah.
And they'll protect your peace and they'll protect your vulnerabilities. And yeah, I mean, that's it. I think I posted it yesterday, but I saw this podcast where one of the guys, he's talking on this podcast about what he's looking for in a partner. And he's like, I don't want anyone that would walk towards me. I want someone that would run towards me.
When your life is so public, how intentional do you have to be about protecting your relationship from other opinions? How hard is that to do as a human? You know, I think a lot of times we see these people that have been on shows and they're influencers and entrepreneurs and whatever, and it has a way of dehumanizing people, but surely it's much harder to deal with behind the scenes.
I think the biggest thing is that opinions, no matter if you have one follower or 100 million followers, like, or you're in a public eye or a private eye, like opinions exist no matter where you live and what you do and how you do it. It's just the amplification of that noise. Like, how loud are those opinions? How often are they coming towards you? And I think the biggest thing is, before I was on any reality show or in like a public light to some capacity, those things still existed, right? Opinions around what people thought of maybe relationships or me or family, like those exist in everybody's life. It's just the magnitude and the noise of that just goes from, like, let's call it a 5 to a 500. It just gets louder, but there's more noise. And I think in general, whether it's a private conversation and you live a private life, there's noise in your neighborhood and not at the dinner table. And if it's on a public figure, there's noise just in other places. So for me, it's less about what those opinions are, and it's more about how is a unit do you handle that noise? And what does it mean? And how is that noise impacting you? And why is it impacting you? And where are the insecurities with that? And does noise separate you, or does noise strengthen you? And so that's a perspective of someone that's been in the public eye, and some people, and that's lived a very private life. And I think it's really about what the unity at home is, and how you and your partner come together during those situations and not let it separate you. And but if there's cracks in the foundation, opinions will just continue to make those cracks breaks. And when there's not cracks in the foundation, the opinions become a conversation point for growth and strength, as opposed to anger.
How would you say that you and Catherine navigate that as a unit? She's kind of new to that world, I would say.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is when those, let's say, like, negativity comes in, the way that she handles it is it's not a transfer of energy of negativity towards opinions that she gets, or DMs that she receives, or comments she reads to us. The shield is up, and then it just becomes like productive conversation of, like, like, why did that bother me? Let's talk about that. Like, why did that bother? What do you think it is about that comment? Or why do you think people say that? Or, like, what's your take on this? It's never the transfer. And I think what happens in a lot of public relationships is there's noise, there's opinions, that energy gets transferred into your relationship. And Catherine handles it so very well. And I think when you have such a healthy perspective on life, you realize that a lot of those opinions and a lot of that noise is from people who don't know you, that have alternate motives. And usually it's from external longing or internal resentment. Like, a lot of people will poke judgment at people because they're longing for something they might have, or they see something in themselves that they resent about that person. And then there becomes the filter of, like, hey, that one hurt, maybe because that one is right. And then you start to, like, analyze it. But I think it's like the transfer of energy. And it doesn't matter if you got 5 friends or 5 million friends, opinions exist everywhere.
Do you guys have a wedding date?
We don't have a wedding date yet. We're in planning mode, though, but it's going to be, I think, I know.
Does everybody tell you that?
Everyone says that.
Yeah.
Everyone says that about, like, everyone says that about, well, it's so interesting to hear opinions. Like, some people are like, wedding planning's the best. Some people are like, it's the worst thing ever.
Yeah.
Then I have, like, some friends who have kids and all they do is complain. And then they're like, oh my God, wait till you have a kid, wait till you have a second kid. Then I have other friends that are like, it's literally the best thing in the world. So it's like opinions,
exactly,
more opinions.
Exactly.
You got to filter out the noise.
Honestly, it wasn't too terrible. It just depends on how much you like planning. You know, my wedding planning went relatively smoothly because we booked a venue that had everything included. So we really didn't have to do a whole lot.
Was that destination?
No.
Oh,
yeah.
wow.
So we did it. I'm from Cleveland, so downtown Cleveland.
I lived in Cleveland for a little bit.
Michael A. was at my wedding.
He's going to be in New York tonight. Yeah.
What are we doing later?
Yeah,
We're for sure. But yeah, it'll be great.
I lived on West 9th Street for a little bit.
You lived in Ohio?
Yeah, Cleveland, Ohio.
When?
Yeah. From 2013 to 2011 to 2013.
I was going to say, I was hoping you would say 2016 because that was peak Cleveland when the Cavs won the championship and LeBron was still there. And it's like we've been chasing that high ever since, but I don't think it's ever coming back.
I liked it. I have people, I love Cleveland. But 2027, definitely next year. We haven't narrowed in on the exact date, but we're in planning mode now, full force.
Super excited for you guys. I want to talk about your career, because your path from The Bachelor to entrepreneur looked different from most contestants. We see the Bachelor contestant to the influencer pipeline. You kind of flipped that on its head. And I want to know, was that intentional from day one? You knew what you were going to do with your platform, or did that evolve over time?
No, I didn't. When I went on I didn't know what a platform was. I'll never forget when I was in the Bachelor Mansion, there was this guy talking about how he was planning his outfits. Oh my God. I'll never forget this. He was planning his outfits based on the color. And he was like, well, if it's a certain color, it'll attract certain like viewership or like likeness or something. This is 2018. I was like, you're wearing the color of your shirt tonight because you think of how it's going to be perceived by the public on TV.
That's next level.
What you're thinking. Not what you say, not who you are, not what you mean, but that is absolutely asinine. And there was a lot of talk in the Bachelor Mansion, I remember, around like Instagram and what people should do, how they should do it. I didn't know how to post a photo. I didn't know how to crop a photo. I didn't know any of that. So there was no plan of like, how is this going to work or what's it going to work? I think that's kind of like life and business in general. Like things hit you in the face and you figure it out. And what was my hit in the face? I got off the show and someone called me about, I think it was a $15,000 deal to take a picture of a weighted blanket or something. I was like, what? What did you just say? You did. And so then you start to learn the business a little bit. And then what I learned was there was the things that I had known in my previous lives, right? Like getting an MBA in accounting and finance and working in the banking industry. There's a lot of gaps in that information, career navigation on the platform, especially back in 2018. So a lot of it was just like, trial by error, see what works, see what doesn't work, talk about the things you already know that are meaningful to you. And from that, all these different things unraveled. Like the podcast unraveled because all my buddies were making fun of me when I would do swipe up. Remember back in the day it was swipe up?
Yes.
So they'd be like, oh yeah, swipe up, swipe up. And then I would say to my buddies, I'd be like, I know how much they paid me for that deal.
Exactly.
And then they'd be like, what? And now all those same buddies are calling me back, hey, so how do I do my business
Is
page?
the swipe up
how
still
do I do
available?
social media? So it's funny that like a lot of opportunities in general or business and things that have worked out the way they have just come from like, fall on your face, you learn something, and you're like something gravitates you towards that interest.
Money is such a difficult subject for so many people and for so many different reasons. Have you always had a healthy relationship with money? Is that something that you had to learn over time?
I think in general, like money is so weaponized. Like it's such an easy way to try and misrepresent, take things out of context, and take a shameful shot at someone. Like it's so easy to do it. And therefore, money conversations become a feeling of just like, one, we don't want to be vulnerable with it. And two, we feel like we're going to get hit in the face by what we do. Maybe it's spending, maybe it's saving, whatever it is. And so in general, and I talk about this often, but like we were taught nothing about it. We weren't taught how to talk about it. It impacts what we do and how we do it. It materially impacts divorce rate. And so I'm a huge proponent of like, just talk about it. And when it all hit me was when I was 16, my grandfather sat me down. He got taken advantage of by a financial advisor and lost 40% of his net worth and came upstairs, and he was an oral surgeon. And he's just like, hey, this is what I have. I don't know finance, but I taught myself finance. I want you to make sure that you understand it because stories change, contexts shift, but numbers don't lie. And so like, that's where I got my lesson on money. But as far as like a healthy relationship with it, I think I've always had a pretty healthy relationship with money. I just don't think that no one has a perfect relationship, right? And like, there's so many areas that everyone can improve on. And so I think like one thing I talked about, one of my books was at 21, I was like, where is all my money going? And I just did a breakdown of my credit card, saw that I was spending so much at the bar, and it's wild how behind spending, there's actually so much psychology attached to it. I remember when I graduated college, I was feeling quite depressed. I didn't really know what was next. I was living this new identity in the professional world, and I feel like I was looking for like kind of like acceptance, and I wanted more friends. So I'd go to the bar and just open up my tab and buy drinks for everyone. And so you can learn so much behind the psychology of where you're at based on why you're spending, and thinking about where you're spending and why, and what's driving that. And is it for yourself? Is it for something? Like, what actually is it? Can be eye-opening. That was one lesson I learned, but I think you could always continue to learn. And there's things I'll have to continue to do better, and you have to open up a SEP. We already talked about that before.
Yes, I know, which kind of leads me into my next question, and I know that this is probably an impossible question to answer, and it's vague, but if you had to give one piece of financial advice to creators, let's start with creators, what would it be?
To creators, it would be take 50% of whatever comes into your bank account and throw it in another account and don't look at it, don't touch it. That's the biggest thing. And then I would say, don't expect, like, your income can change so frequently, and there's so many ebbs and flows of when deals come in and how they come in. So don't, like, your expectation should be that formalizing like an annual amount that will be reoccurring is going to be a challenge because the space is growing so much.
Right.
So don't, if you had a big year, let's say whatever, you made $200,000, $250,000. I think the expectation should be that can change, and I should live a life a lot less modest than that, a lot more modest than that. And so, like, what I do with my financial advisors is they kind of treat it like an athlete. They're like, we're going to assume that next year it's done, right? Like, we've been doing that for a while. That assumption has put me in a really good position, right? So I think the biggest thing is they overspend, and they don't prepare for, like, taxes.
What about for someone who has a 9-to-5?
The basic equation when it comes to finances: cash inflow, cash outflow, what's left over. In a 9-to-5, the biggest thing you want to make sure is that your bad debt is taken care of. Bad debt, anything over 5%, 6%, 7%. You want to make sure that is not tied to an asset instrument. A mortgage might be 7%, but it's tied to and backed and connected to a piece of property, which is an asset, which will hopefully increase at a greater rate than the cost of the capital. People in 9-to-5 is if you're overspending and you run into credit card debt and you're getting charged 30 to 40% and it's reoccurring and there's balances that are overflowing, it's going to be extremely, extremely hard to get out of that. So 9-to-5, that's first and foremost. And the second thing is the basic equation of know what your inflow is after tax and know what your outflows are, and do what you can do to optimize your outflow so you can have more left over. And the more you have left over, the easier you'll be in a position for financial freedom. And if you're wondering what you need for retirement, one thing I would tell you to do is look at how much you spend on an annual basis and just divide it by 0.047. So it's 4.7%. That's how much you need if you are looking to retire. So I think keeping an eye on the overall prize is important too.
What would you say to people who want to make smarter financial decisions, want to start investing, but feel like they have no idea where to start?
I think it's fair, right? I think that's a deep conversation to why the hell are we not taught anything about finance anywhere?
Right.
Why is there a CEO of a massive healthcare insurance company coming on my podcast saying 75% of Americans don't know what a premium and a deductible is? These are some of our biggest expenses and we're taught nothing about it. So one, I think there's a system issue. Two, great for you for acknowledging that. Most people are too afraid to even acknowledge that. So you're creating vulnerability with money dilemmas and issues, which is like so healthy. And three, there's never been more resources in the world than right now. I mean, literally from any AI to a ton of credible creators to textbooks and books, New York Times bestsellers, it's at your fingertips. I would tell someone is like, if you're struggling with what financial things mean, put it into any form of AI like a Claude and just say, explain this to me like I'm a fourth grader. But you gotta know it. Every day you don't know it, you're putting yourself at a disadvantage. And so I just think it's so important that people talk about it.
You've worn a lot of different hats over the years. I mean, finance, reality TV, podcasting, investing. Is there a version of you that feels the most authentic? And where do you feel the most at home?
I think in the idea of crossover, like wearing a lot of hats, is something that every person's going to have to get very comfortable with in the world that we're living in 2026. And so I also think that's okay. Like, I think a lot of people, or at least millennials, have been born to think you have like one niche, one identity. It's your job. That's your role. That's your responsibility. It defines you. And I'm a big proponent of like breaking that blueprint. Like, no, like why can't you wear multiple hats? Why can't you do multiple things that are still authentic to you? Like, why, it doesn't, you don't have to be so siloed, and I don't think you should. So I think all the areas of my work and my life are authentic to me, but they're just different areas of life. You know what I mean? Like, so the two things I enjoy the most is being able to use my platform to make a difference, like in some capacity. When we met, Catherine and I met this guy. We met two people at the Super Bowl. They were wearing Detroit Lions jerseys, and Catherine's a huge Detroit fan. So she went up to him and said hello. And there was a lot of noise around the Super Bowl, right? There's a lot of polarization around the Super Bowl, the halftime show, all this bullshit. And to just see a really nice, natural interaction of like humanity was beautiful. I took a video, I threw it on my story. I'm like, how peaceful in a place of chaos, what it seems like right now. And then his daughter reached out to me and said, I can't believe you ran into Harry and Dan. And they went on to the story telling us that Harry has terminal cancer.
Oh,
and the reason that they went to the Super Bowl wearing Detroit Lions jerseys is because Dan, his brother-in-law, said to Harry, you know, we don't know what next year looks like. We don't know, like, if you're going to be here for a Super Bowl. So put on your Lions jersey, we're going, and surprise them. And then we shared that story, and from that story, 40,000 people tagged the Detroit Lions. The Detroit Lions ended up doing unbelievable things for Harry. They have a not-for-profit I actually just donated to yesterday. We see them when we go to Detroit. They're friends. We made an impact. Their family, they reach out often, just being like, it's so cool that with your platform, you've really changed our perception of life and what our family's seeing. And I've learned so much from them. So I think with a platform, when you can do cool, that's the best. And then the second thing is I just love the podcasting, because to me, I get a masterclass of learning so much from some of the most talented people in the world. And like that, it's just that's a dream. Like every time I sit down with someone, I get to interview them. I just think like people would do so much to gain this information, and I get to just ask them questions where I can learn and hopefully serve an audience that can learn.
Yeah.
So those two things I like the most.
I think your point is so true, because even when I have been asked in the past, like, what's your 5-year plan, or where do you see yourself in 5 years? I could never really answer it, because I feel like your wants and desires evolve as you get older and as you're in different phases of your life. So why, pigeonhole yourself? I remember every time I would say, this is where I would want to be in 5 years. Like, for example, I did radio for a long time. And when I first started, they tell you should want to be on a syndicated show someday. So you spend however many years of your career working to be on a syndicated show. Well, for me, COVID happened, and I started broadcasting from home, and then I started posting on social media, pop culture stuff that I was doing on the morning show. And then that's how I, became Morgan P. Talks, my own podcast, whatever. That was 5 years.
Yeah.
So I would have never had the knowledge to be like, in 5 years, I want to have my own business, run my own podcast or whatever. But if I would have pigeonholed myself into that 5-year goal of being on a syndicated show, I wouldn't have allowed myself the growth to get where I am today. And it sounds like you've kind of had a similar experience.
Yeah, I think like our definition of success is built on expectations we've set based on the information we have. And that information changes every day, right? Like in 1 year from now, your definition of success is going to be so different than what it is today because of new things you've seen and learned.
Right.
So I think it works for some people, like building that North Star. I just don't think the true North Star is visible if you're doing the right things. And I think if you look at like anyone that's made it big, doing something big, there's no way they saw that North Star. I'm sorry. They didn't, like, you think The Rock, like when he was broke in the NFL, like thought that he would be one of the biggest and best entertainers and actors of all time? No. Even when he was in WWE, do you think one day he would be the best actor of our generation? No, I mean, I think you do the right things, you see new things, and then your expectations shift and change.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm going to pivot hard left, but this happened on TV, and I know you're a Summer House fan. I know you have friends from the Summer House crew, but on the In the City reunion,
okay,
Amanda said, Kyle gave me a book on how to date an entrepreneur. I want to know if you stand by Kyle's decision to do that, and if you think it's necessary for people to read that type of book if they're dating an entrepreneur.
Wait. Kyle gave Amanda a book?
Yeah.
Saying
so like,
this is how you date an entrepreneur?
Yeah. So the book was How to Date an Entrepreneur earlier into their relationship.
Yes. Oh, wow. Okay. I didn't see that. I think my biggest piece of advice there, my biggest take on that situation is compatibility is really important.
Yeah.
And I think, knowing both Amanda and Kyle, they just weren't compatible. Right. And I think if anyone hears that example that you just gave and doesn't somehow think it's the definition of trying to like force a situation in a really good intentional way,
right,
like a caring, sweet way, but like trying to make a situation that probably shouldn't naturally work. Yeah, that's just not the way to do it. That's not the way to do it. But I think that the intention there is just like, obviously he lives a certain lifestyle and she lives a certain lifestyle, and those weren't compatible at all.
Yeah.
I think they're both in better place for their own long-term growth.
100%. And we can want the best for both of them and realize as an audience and as their friend that the best sometimes isn't, trying to make it work. It's kind of like what we were talking about earlier, how you can really care about somebody, but sometimes the pieces of the puzzle just don't fit. And for me, it took finding the puzzle pieces that do fit, my husband, to make me look back and realize I was trying way hard to make something work that just was never going to. And now that I have the right thing, it makes sense.
100%. Yeah, exactly. And I think like if you have certain interests, like, okay, we'll talk about Kyle for a second. If you have certain interests like DJing and growing that career and building your businesses and working the way that Kyle works, like being with someone that also finds interest in those interests are important, right? I think those are important.
I have one final question before I let you go. And it's, a bit reflective. If Jason from 10 years ago saw you today, what do you think would surprise him the most?
Jason from 10 years. That's a good question. I think probably everything.
That's a good answer.
I just think so. Like, I just think about like how much I've grown as a person in 10 years and how much has changed in my life. And I kind of think that there's a part of me that looking into this 10 years would have been like, oh my God, I knew it. Like, I knew you would like do it the way you've done it. And like, I'm just like, I'm excited for you. And then there would be another part of me that's like, holy shit, well, that's wild. So yeah, I think every chapter connects to another chapter, and every experience makes you who you are today. And there's so many things that connect to where my life is today. Like if I never went on the show, I would never live in Nashville. If I never lived in Nashville, I would never have met Catherine. Catherine's my forever. Like it's crazy the way life works. And I think change is great. I think growth is amazing. I think I've learned that absolutes shouldn't exist. Like the words I never will, I can't, I won't. You can say those things, but if those things change in your head, that's okay. That's growth. You don't have to stick to those things. And those should be applauded, not shamed. You mentioned entrepreneur and founder, and it's cool that I'm going to marry someone who's also a founder, but a founder of something that's making such amazing impact. They've saved their organization in whole has saved 19,000 dogs to date. And then for that to be part of my life, but then I'm a founder is really fun. And yeah, I just think in general, when it all clicks, it all makes sense. And like with Catherine, it's just like, there's nothing in my life that's more of a priority to me than her. Grateful for where I'm at, and it's fun.
Well, as a longtime fan, super excited for your next chapter. It's very exciting. We'll be waiting for the wedding content, I'm sure, but just thank you again for hanging out today. And I had fun. I hope you did.
I had such a blast. Thank you for having me, and congrats on all your success, the podcast. You. And it's so much fun to watch what you're doing. So thank you.
And now we got to go talk to my husband about all the accounts I need to set up.
Get that SEP going. Let's go. Get her going. Thanks for having me, Morgan.
Final thoughts. I want to talk about two shows, Let's Marry Harry and The Real Housewives Ultimate Girls Trip Roaring 20th. Let's start there because it's a mouthful and I don't want to say the name again. I already was on this high with the show after being at the premiere party because it is just such I got annoyed with like how much I said it in my red carpet interviews, but it truly is like a monumental moment. And, I've been telling you guys, whether it's House of Stassi, we talked a lot about this on the Patreon this week when we deep dived the House of Stassi finale. I just feel like there's some lightness missing in the reality TV world. When you think back to what made The Real Housewives so great, it was the fact that they could make us laugh and also go through really hard and difficult times. And there's just this layer of comedy that I feel like has been largely missing because the toxicity makes for such like engaging online social media debate. So I feel like sometimes they lean too hard into that. And especially with House of Stassi, there was an argument every single episode. Secret Lives of Mormon Wives, I feel like, are falling into that trap. I feel like The Real Housewives of Orange County, there's a big blow up every single episode. And although we're only one episode into The Real Housewives Ultimate Girls Trip, and there was a little spat between Tamra and Shannon at the end, I laughed so much during the premiere of The Real Housewives Ultimate Girls Trip. And I was like, oh, finally Finally, these women know the deal, okay? They know we want to laugh, we want to cry, we want to know about their life. And I feel like they really are all doing that. And when you get titans of the league, you know, Luann de Lesseps, Kyle Richards, Teresa Giudice in a room together, Giselle Bryant, it's just like a recipe for greatness. And even the antagonist, who so far seems to be Vicky, you know, whether it's what she said to Teresa when Teresa was trying to have a heart-to-heart moment. You know, there's been this sneak preview for next week's episode when she's having this moment with Kyle. Kyle's crying because Mauricio texted her on what would have been their 30th wedding anniversary, and Vicky's like, this isn't going to get better with time. You're only going to continue to miss Mauricio. I really regret divorcing Don. So it's like, Vicky, she's so crazy. God love her. But I just am really enjoying it. And I know that it's too premature to say, but I just feel like, oh, this is what we've been missing. And I'm so happy. Also, let's talk about Let's Marry Harry. We got the finale of Let's Marry Harry this week. And I'm so confused by this show because I could not take it seriously. The entire time I was watching it, I was like, this is so fake. You cannot tell me that Harry Jowsey, of all people, are going to go through this process for a month, get down to the end of it, and actually go through a televised wedding, sign the court documents, sign, seal, delivered, I'm yours. I just didn't believe it. I didn't even think that he would make it down the aisle. And previous to the finale on episode 7, you know, he's having this full-on spiral. He's crying into his hands. He's like, I don't know if I can do this. And we're like, yeah, same story, different day, same old Harry, like, you know, it is what it is, afraid of commitment, can't make a decision. He has 2 great women, Danelle and Amber, very different. Danelle seems like very nurturing, very calming, whereas Amber seems very fun and partner in crime type of energy. And I still just thought there's no way that he's actually going to do this. I remember, and I know I said this on the page yesterday, but I remember just thinking like him and Alex Cooper coming up with the show together. I could just envision them being like, okay, we're going to start with the engagement rings. You're going to go walk down the aisle. You're going to get married, but you don't actually have to get married, Harry. Like, it's just going to be a funny thing or whatever. Like, I just hear that conversation in my brain. So when he actually went down the aisle and got married, or at least said, I do, I was like, what? I was flabbergasted. Although word on the street is that it was not a legally binding marriage. It was just a spiritual ceremony. I wouldn't even go that far. If it's true, it wasn't legally binding. It was a show. It was not a spiritual ceremony. It was, and I don't even mean like a filming show. I mean just like a spectacle. It was just a spectacle. And then I also heard that they're no longer together. So Harry, like, please, if you know you're not ready to get married, and I've seen again, just people, same way they did with House of Sassy, where they're like, oh, this is revolutionary. No, it's not. It's not revolutionary, okay? It's a spectacle. All right, guys, I hope you enjoyed this week's episode of MPT. If you want to listen ad-free and a day early, make sure you subscribe to the Lilas Plus tier. Plus, you get bonus content every single Monday. You pick the episodes that we recap, so it's super fun. Join Lilas Plus in the show notes below. If you have not left a review, love 5-star boop boop, love you like it says, now would be the time to do so. It helps the podcast tremendously. It also buries those 1-star reviews every now and again that you get from crazy people with the Cheeto fingers, as Lisa Barlow would say. So, anyhow, if not, I'll see you back next week. And as always, love you like it says.